Choir podcast. I am your host, Miss Brittany Renee. I am a serial entrepreneur, a personal development coach, and author. And today we have Pastor Stanley Jay from Worship Life Center from Mesa, Arizona here with us.
That's right. Hey everybody, how y'all doing?
Thank you so much for coming. I am honored that you took the call and you are here with us today, and I am just so excited because I know how blessed I will be.
Amen.
And how you will bless other people. So we are going to just dive right into
Let's get right in it.
Yeah, so if you can just give us a little bit of background about yourself and who you are and all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start here. I'm the baby of 4.
Okay.
Born in Maywood, Illinois at Westlake Hospital.
Okay.
I guess I was a little spoiled growing up. My mom couldn't do for my brothers and my sister as much as she could for me. Things had changed by the time I started growing up.
Okay.
So I had, she started doing, a little bit more for me, and that kind of spoiled me and kind of gave me a different mindset on life. Raised good. I was raised in an amazing family. Made a lot of bad decisions as I got older, and it took me down the road that me and you would travel today.
Yes.
But here I am, so I'm grateful.
Awesome. Well, before we dive all the way into it, I just want to introduce our topic that we have today, which is from behind bars to the pulpit, how your background influences the way you preach and teach.
Wow, that is so good. I'm going to preach that one day.
All right.
That is awesome.
Well, I'll make sure that I get you that. So, if you will, I want you to dive a little bit deeper into your childhood. Like you said, you were a little spoiled. And,
Yeah. I was spoiled. When my mom was pregnant with me, my dad left.
Okay.
Actually, he dropped her off at the hospital to have me, and that was the last sighting of him.
Wow.
Yeah, so my mom raised us by herself, and she did an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say, well, we did the best we can. She didn't do the best she could. She actually did the job. She raised us amazing, all of us. And I decided to run with the neighborhood friends and get into mischief, and I believe that was the beginning of my bad decision making. And pretty good in school, played baseball, and in fact I played all sports, but my main sport was baseball. Loved it. Played 25 years of baseball, so I really loved it. Was introduced to alcohol and drugs at an early age, Brittany. In fact, I remember my 15th birthday, not 16th, 15th, when people usually celebrate Sweet 16, 16. I was 15 years old in the back of a U-Haul, throwing up from drinking. I think by 18 I was a full-fledged alcoholic.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that thing rolled through our family. So
Okay.
If you didn't drink, then you wasn't normal. Just that thing traveled our family and all of us. That's what we do. We drank, and then drinking wasn't doing it no longer. So I began to experiment with other things.
Okay.
And then I hit one thing that I liked. Some of the things I experimented with, it wasn't my cup of tea. So I said, well, I won't do that no more. But when I hit the cocaine and began to, back then, a lot of folks don't know about this because it was way back in the early 80s. But when we began to freebase, and that thing I liked, and that took me further than I wanted to go, had me spending more money than I wanted to spend, and it kept me longer than I wanted to stay. Yeah, in fact, that addiction that took place as a result of my using had me homeless in 5 states. Yeah, from the viaducts of Michigan to the bridges of Allegheny County in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Then I took a residency downtown in Los Angeles on Skid Row.
Wow.
Yeah, I lived in a cardboard box.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, God saw a lost soul and desired it, and that's what He sees for everyone. And so we just thank God for His love and His patience with me. It was old song say, "Please be patient with me, God ain't through with me yet." Yeah, And that was kind of my theme song
Mm-hmm.
as I went through the missions and the shelters and slept in tents and cardboard boxes. And I did it all by choice because I had a great family.
Yeah.
At any time, I could have went back home, but
Wow.
by that time, I loved what I was doing. I
Right.
didn't like the results,
Mm-hmm.
but I really loved what I was doing. Yeah.
So I wanna tap back into, you shared that your father dropped your mother off.
Mm-hmm.
And your mom did her absolutely best that
She
she
did
could,
it.
and she
Yes,
sounds
she
like a
did it.
phenomenal woman.
Yes.
But oftentimes we experience trauma indirectly, right?
Yes.
So it was in that moment that your mom was dropped off at a hospital and was left there to figure life out by herself.
Yes.
And as a result, those things trickle down into a generation because of now you being exposed to alcohol. Do you think that if your father was present, that may have changed the trajectory of you using and indulging in alcohol?
Maybe. You know, it took me a long time to, I guess, embrace what you just shared.
Mm-hmm.
My wife would tell me all the time, she'd say, babe, you know, you have to deal with this. And I say, ain't nothing wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell her all the time, I said, no, I'm different. That don't bother me at all.
Right.
But the reality of it is, there was something missing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the father figure in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was a heroin addict and an alcoholic too.
Mm-hmm.
He got addicted in Panama in 1955.
Wow.
And so that line of drugs and alcohol is long.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
long. And we just kind of thought that was the normal thing to do.
Absolutely.
You know, you're sitting around chopping it up with your family and we laughing. And, you know, back home, we just sit on the front porch and have a good time. The whole neighborhood would come to my mama's house.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't have a beer, you wasn't normal.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
I remember one day, Britt, my mom came in and she said, son, I said, ma'am, very respectful, all of us. That's how she raised us.
Yes.
I says, ma'am, she said, you drink too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Mom, I didn't drink ale beer for you. Every one I drank was for me. You know, that
Yeah.
was kind of our mindset. And I didn't
Right.
understand
Right.
why people didn't drink and do what we done.
Mhm.
It was normal.
Mhm.
And my wife opened my eyes and says, if you don't dig deeper
Mhm.
into these abandonment issues,
Mhm.
yeah, this issue that you have that you don't know you have about not being wanted.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know I had that.
Right.
But as I grew, especially as I began to grow in the Word,
Mhm.
I found out that there was something on the inside that was hurting.
Yeah.
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 And so I tapped into it and allowed the Spirit of the living God to help me.
That's right.
Yeah, and delivered me from all that I was struggling with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a relationship with your father after?
I
after he
did.
left?
I did. And it's ironic you asked that. I remember asking my dad at 16
Mhm.
at my grandmother's funeral, his mom's.
Mhm. Mhm.
I remember asking him, why did you leave us?
Mm.
And he mentioned something that I thought was a poor excuse.
Mm.
And I shared my feelings because he says, well, with you coming in and we didn't have money and another mouth to feed, and I just thought it'd be better if I left. And I thought that was so bad.
Mhm.
So at that time, I told him at 18, I'm going to come see you. I got to see you about this.
Mhm.
I was 16, but I said 18, I'm coming for you.
Right.
Yeah, and at 18, we went out there to see him, and I embraced my dad
Mm.
and loved my dad. Me and my wife was on my dad's side the whole time he was transitioning out of this earth. He had leukemia,
Oh, okay.
and 72 years old, and we were at his side the whole time.
Mm.
Yeah, he became my best friend.
Mm. And how did you restore that relationship with your father?
I began to, it wasn't nothing I did. My natural couldn't do it.
Mm.
But my life began to change because of what I was practicing.
Mm.
And I remember him asking me one day, what is that you do?
Mm.
And I was able to tell him. And he said, okay. And while he was in the hospital, he says to me and my wife, he says, can you make sure when I go, you do my funeral?
Mm.
And I said, well, we won't talk about that. You ain't going nowhere. But he didn't want anyone to talk about his life over him. And the Bible says they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't hold back. We go ahead and tell what God has done for you, and so that somebody else can get free.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you were already doing the work when you had that restoration with you and your father.
Absolutely. I started, but I had episodes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I had moments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had some big moments. Me and my wife is together, been together over 22 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember clean time and then starting to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You had to come home and start a fight because she made biscuits.
Wow.
Why didn't you do cornbread?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wanted that with the rice and gravy.
Mm-hmm.
And but the reality of it is I was ready to go out. I was ready to go. Brittany, I used for your birthday. It wasn't nothing special.
Right, just for any
I was a full-fledged
occasion.
alcoholic addict.
Wow.
So I used just because it was Tuesday.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't nothing special.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got high till the wheels fell off.
Mm.
Yeah, and I just decided that I was gonna die out there.
Mm.
Yeah.
So what was your age from when you became homeless and then you went to prison and then you came?
Yeah, I
out?
went to jail in every state I was in. I remember in a maximum secure facility, and I was in there with lifers. I mean, these guys was laughing and saying, "You a short timer," and but it all started, I think, in 1984.
Okay.
It started in 84, 85, and I think I went to my first county jail in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
It was Dane County.
Mm-hmm.
Been to so many of them, I get them mixed up. But,
And what were you going for? If you don't mind me asking?
yeah, I was going for possession. All my cases was possession.
Oh,
Drug paraphernalia and controlled substance.
wow.
Yeah, never had a violent.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
wasn't violent, but I certainly did the things I needed to do to use. And I held up to my responsibility. I wasn't gonna throw my drugs away because I was a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
So just take me to jail.
Mm.
That was my attitude.
So it wasn't even for selling, it was just
Oh,
for
absolutely not. I never made a dime.
Wow.
Never tried to sell.
Wow.
I got high.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
and receive felonies because
Oh,
of that.
absolutely. I'm a 3-time convicted felon.
Wow.
Yeah. I was sentenced to 8 years. 1 year, I remember going in to the same judge, Judge Rand Rubin, and he sentenced me to 8 years because I was a repeat offender.
Mm.
And
Okay.
that had a little bit more. I had a concealed weapon at that time, downtown Los Angeles, and so they got me with drugs, paraphernalia, controlled substance, and a CCW, carrying a concealed weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, I got to give you your joint suspension, which was 8 years. And I said, okay,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and give it to me. Believe it or not, those moments was times where I was able to go in a place and get some clarity and able to clear my head. And the truth of the matter, I wasn't going to do it out with freedom.
Right.
I was going to use.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when you got out, did you go back?
Oh, absolutely.
How
Absolutely.
long did it? Was
The
that
most
transition?
time I've ever had clean was 8 months.
Okay.
In a 15-year span.
Wow.
I've never went over
Wow.
that. At around the 8-month mark, it was time to hit the streets.
Mm-hmm.
It was time to go back out. And I knew the system. I knew how to get into the Salvation Army. I knew how to go to Gravy Joe's. I knew how to stand in the bread line. I understood all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was for it. I knew how to get into the system and get food stamps and I mean in every state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I go down to the mail-in bank and they give me $102.50 in cash and they give me stamps. And I stayed at a place called Pleasant Valley Shelter.
Mm.
And then down in Madison, Wisconsin, I stay at Grace Shelter and go up on Washington Street and you get $347 in cash and $130 in food stamps. And
Wow.
California give you $221. And so I knew the system and I knew I could make it because that's the life I choose to live.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you didn't have anything on my next one, we didn't have a conversation.
Mm.
So don't ask me to stop using. Don't tell me how dangerous it is. I knew what I was in for, and I was prepared to
Mm-hmm.
just kind of go out, die in
Mm-hmm.
those streets.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was the pivotal moment for you when you had this moment where you said, you know, I don't want to live like this, because you had already made up in your mind that you were going to die in the streets,
Yeah.
and that drugs was what you wanted to do and you were having
Yes.
fun doing it. So what was
Yeah.
that pivotal moment for you? And then when did you get married after, you know, that?
Yeah.
Because you said you would go and pick fights, and so
Oh,
you were
absolutely.
still using then when you got married. So what was
was.
that pivotal moment for you?
You know, I was downtown Los Angeles on 3rd in Los Angeles at the Midnight Mission.
Mm-hmm.
It was raining, and I don't know if you all ever seen homeless with blankets
Mhm.
over. That was me. So I had a blanket over my head, sitting on the curb.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting on the bread line to open, and I said, Lord, if you're real, yeah, I remember that. I said, if you're real, Lord, you're gonna have to help me.
Mm.
That I'm not gonna be able to. That I won't be able to do this.
Mm.
And they opened the bread line, and I went up to the front to get my ticket. And I asked the guy, I said, you guys got a Bible?
Mm. Wow.
And he said, no, we don't. He said, we don't have them here. He said, but you can go to 5th Street to the Los Angeles Mission,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll give you a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm alumni from there, by the way.
Wow. Praise God.
Yeah, I went and got the Bible, and then I got into the program, and I stayed in the program.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I stayed in, and I went to aftercare for another year, and in '98 I met Joyce
Mm-hmm.
in church, and you know, I was suave and smooth, and
Mhm.
she loved me right away.
Mm-hmm.
That's my story. But I met her, and I had episodes
Yeah.
after meeting
Yeah.
her. We got engaged in a month. I bought rings a month after we met,
Wow.
and I asked her to marry me right away.
Wow.
And she knew the risk, but she was willing to take the chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I thank God for her because you know, songs say somebody somewhere
Mhm.
prayed for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was her. She stayed on her face and stayed in the trenches. And when I had episodes, it was her that believed the call that was on my life.
Did she know you before, or you guys had just met and then got engaged in a month?
We did. She knew me because the mission would come, the church would come to the mission and do
Mm.
services.
Wow.
So she saw me here, there,
yeah.
and she knew that that was a tremendous call on my life.
Yeah.
And that's why I went through so much. The enemy said, I got to get that guy out of here.
Yeah.
If I can get him to go, then he won't save no souls.
That's right.
Yeah, but to God be the glory. The
Yes.
devil is a lie.
Yes, he is.
And the truth is not in him.
Yes.
Yeah, but that was the moment, sitting on the curb with a blanket on in the rain. And I said, Lord, I don't want to die like this.
Mm.
You know, help me.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
And the help I received was not a normal help. I got the Bible from the missions, and just as I got the Bible, before I can do anything else, one of the Cuban guys that I used to run packages for
Mm-hmm.
up and down the street of Skid Row, I saw him and he says, hey, Papi. And I went and made a run for him, but got caught.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that put me in the back of the squad car, and I looked up and I said, well, Lord, I guess this is your way of helping me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So even with episodes here or there,
Mm-hmm.
that moment was the defining moment. And the reality of it is I've never turned back since then.
Mm-hmm.
Had moments,
Mm-hmm.
but I've always stayed grounded in what I felt in that moment
Mm-hmm.
to help me is what I leaned on to continue
Mm-hmm.
my journey.
Mm-hmm. When did you all have your first child, and what was that like with, you know, having those moments? And you have a strong wife, and,
Yes.
and I know you obviously know that, but me just learning more about you, you have a tremendously strong wife.
Yes, she's amazing.
Yes.
She's amazing.
What was that like for you and your family, you know?
You know, I married into a blended family. I have 2 girls and we have 3 girls and a boy, so it's 6 of us.
Okay.
6 kids.
Okay.
And my 2 daughters, my oldest was actually in the streets with me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so she was 12 and 13 years old, selling drugs, and I did them. She sold them.
Wow.
Yeah, 12 and 13.
Wow.
Yeah, she was sentenced to 3 years in, I think it's Chinchilla.
Chachilla.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we were in court together.
Wow.
Yeah, and but then when God began to turn my life around, she turned hers around.
Praise God.
To God be the glory,
Wow.
and never turned back.
Wow.
My baby, a few years younger than her, was in Elkhart, Indiana. At that time, she was in Benton Harbor, Michigan, born in St. Joseph. And my oldest daughter found her on Black Planet.
Mm. Yeah. Well,
MySpace
a long
or
time
something
ago.
like that.
Yeah.
She found her on there, and immediately we got her to California with us and stayed the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been connected ever since.
Wow.
And it was a journey. It was tough. I didn't know how to mend that relationship, one that never started.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went to Benton Harbor running from the police, and her mom let me stay there and until the police came. And once the feds came, and you know, they hid me, and I got out of there. I never turned back. My daughter was 1. She was, her 2nd birthday was approaching.
Okay.
And I didn't make that because I had to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once the feds came and asked about me, I said, I gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
They on me.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the whole swing of Michigan. I
Mm-hmm.
went from Benton Harbor to Battle Creek, South Haven to Kalamazoo to Grand Rapids. So I lived in all those missions and shelters, just kind of making my way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned too, you know, restoring that relationship with your father, and then having a wife that brought to your attention that there was some trauma that you had to figure out, right,
Yes.
and fight through. And hearing that your child was on the streets with you selling drugs,
Yes.
while you were doing drugs,
Yes.
and then getting sentenced, and then you being away. How did you look at that relationship with your kids and compare it to the relationship that you had with your father? Were you ever afraid that you wouldn't be able to mend the relationship, or would not be possibly what your story is with your father?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I didn't want to get close to the kids because I didn't think I could live up to what a father could be.
Mm.
I wasn't up for that challenge.
Mm.
You know, so you do your thing, I'm gonna do mine. Whatever they need, if I can produce it or have it, great. And I think it was just more of me not wanting to take the responsibility of something I didn't know.
Mm.
Didn't know how to father, never seen a father.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what a father's supposed to do. So the only thing that I can do early, because we've been together so long, our kids were young.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I could do was discipline.
Mm.
I didn't know anything about loving and talking through and no. All I knew was discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the father, that's me,
Mm-hmm.
the disciplinary.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about love. And it took it just took the relationship that I had with my wife to help me in the areas that I was very weak in.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's why we were together and together today, is because the areas that I'm weak in, she's strong.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began to embrace that and say, you know what, I can be vulnerable and ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Help me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I got it, I raised my hand to be there for them, because now I want to do what wasn't done.
Right.
What I didn't know that I know now, I want to do. And I didn't want my kids to go down the road that I went, which none of them did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to God be the glory.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I just wanted to prevent them from doing and making decisions that I made. And if they did make one, I needed to know how to be able to cushion the fall. You know, yeah. And we have a great relationship today. Me and all my kids.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, you just spoke on something that is very prevalent in the Black community, right? And so oftentimes, because there aren't good examples, or a father may have walked out or been incarcerated or been killed or whatever the case is, we see so many single mothers raising children on their own. And you know, you just shared, because I just didn't know how, so that was the best that I had, right?
That was it.
And I often hear that you refer back to your wife.
Yeah.
But what is some advice that you would give a young man who may not have a wife, right? Or may not have someone as strong as Pastor Joyce?
Yes.
What type of advice would you give them, you know, to stand up and be that father, even if they don't know how? Because one thing that I've learned, and you know, being in your presence in that church, you have no problem with asking for help.
Right.
And that is a huge thing for men, I think, in general, but from what I see, particularly Black men, you know, it's hard to ask for help, and just encouraging young men that it's okay to ask for help if you don't know.
Absolutely.
You know, so what advice would you give?
Absolutely. I think the first thing, Brittany, that I would, the advice that I would give to anyone, especially a young father that don't know, haven't experienced it, and don't know their way around fatherhood. And I think the first thing I would do is share with them, ask them to lose the pride. Sometimes we don't know it's pride. Yeah, you have to drop the pride and be willing to ask for help. Yeah, seek help. Yeah, it's really that simple. And I know it's a hard thing for us to do when you're conditioned not to.
Right.
You know, men don't cry and men don't, you know, and that's terrible that we was conditioned that way and raised in that manner. But the truth of the matter is, it's that's where our help is. Our help is inside the help.
That's right.
That's where our help is. And so we have to be willing to say, hey, help me. And once we get the help, we have to be willing to help somebody else. I think it's therapeutic that it's us being able to grasp something, learn it, and then help somebody else. Yeah. That's how life actually is.
Right.
Yeah, we don't hold it and keep it for ourselves. We give it to somebody that needs it. Yeah, and that's how we keep it by giving it away.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a saying that God gives his strongest battles, right? to the strongest ones, right? And many are called, but few are chosen.
That's right.
And I've learned with the calling on my life why I go through
What
so
you go
much
through.
and what I go through, right?
Yeah.
And I've accepted the call and the mantle, and the cross can be heavy at times.
Absolutely.
But I believe that we all are put on earth for a purpose, and we all have a purpose. And before I get into that, I want to ask, how did you start your church and, you know, transition from all these different things and then now in the pulpit, right?
Yes.
So, can we kind of tap into
Oh,
that?
absolutely, absolutely. I believe it was back in 05, 06, me and my wife started at a new church. And once we got there, we just kind of sat down. We'd already been operating in ministry. And we sat down and just done what they asked. And my father in the faith, my senior pastor, asked me to share one day, and I did, and that was the beginning of it for us there. And we had decided we wasn't going to pursue a church. We liked what we were doing.
Okay.
You know, we served very close to our pastors, and in fact, we had different services, and if he wasn't doing one, I was doing one. So we were originally coming to the state of Arizona to open a church for our old church and be the site pastors.
Okay.
And when that didn't work out in that manner, I decided that me and my wife decided that we would do it. And so it was a challenge. It was tough. We knew that the call and of God was on both of our lives, and that we were qualified and willing. Yeah, and because with me, I believe that God's don't look for all those who knows what they're doing. He looks for the folks that's willing to do what he that's
right.
going to do.
That's right.
We were willing.
Right.
So we came out here to Arizona with no home. We didn't have a house. We drove the U-Haul and her Equinox, and my car was on the back of the U-Haul, and we slept in the U-Haul. And we was used to that. We had time where we slept in our van. We had one room with our kids when I was getting things together.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah.
And so we had one room, the kids stayed in it. We would cook, make sure they ate, and then we would go sleep in the van at night.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were, we would go sleep in the van. And so we were used to that. And so we came out here and we started a Bible study with 6 people. And I believe in 4 months' time, we went into our own space, and we went to 2 services from the 6. So we was well over 400 in a year's time.
Wow.
You know, to God be the glory.
Yes.
And it's because what we believe. We believe that that this walk with Christ is a together thing. So we don't pedestal ourselves and we don't separate ourselves. We believe we do life together, not alone. And then we believe in being sincere and genuine. And that's how we got where we are today. And it's all again to God be the glory. Like I said, we didn't plan it. We've always said we wasn't going to have a church. We thought we were too old. We were too old to start a church. But God had other plans. Yeah. And that's how where we are now.
Wow. Your testimony is amazing. And as you continue to talk, it's just like I just keep learning more and more. But it's just so encouraging, right? Like you said, it's a process.
It is.
And it's a process that we often have to trust.
Yes.
Because sometimes we can't see the road and where it's going to lead us. But knowing that God's hand is on your life and knowing where He's brought you to and from, just to trust that process. That's just so important. And this is the Signature Required podcast where we talk about your purpose and wearing your name proud. And so we have to ask you, what is your purpose in life?
That's good. My purpose, sole purpose, and it sounds very common and a cliche, but my purpose is to bring lost souls to Christ. It really is, and I love it. I couldn't see myself doing anything else, and I understand what the fight was all about. I really do. I see what it was all about. I was sent into this region by God for broken people like me, and that's what I have inherited. And I'm so grateful for it because I have an opportunity to share in a manner, elementary manner, a manner that's layman's term, plain English, to draw folks to Christ.
Absolutely.
And that's my purpose. In this earth, my purpose is to be willing to share with folks how good God has been to me, and then lead them to Him.
Absolutely.
Let them go and go get somebody else. That's what I'm here for, Ms. Brittany.
I love it.
That's it.
I love it. and you are walking in your purpose. And I'm just so happy that we're here on this podcast because so many young people need to hear your story. They need to hear stories like this because oftentimes we get into our own heads and think that nobody understands.
Right.
Nobody knows what we're going through.
Yes.
And that's not the truth, and that's the enemy, right? And so you coming today and sharing your story, I know it's going to encourage and bless so many, and especially young men. Some of the things that you were sharing, I see it so often. I deal with it, right? and I see just being a disciplinary, because that's all we know at times, right? But how to love and nurture and talk through, and like you said, to be there to cushion, that's just so important. And so tell the people how they can reach you and how they can connect with you, and where your church is located.
Absolutely. We're at Worship Life Center Church, 4930 East Main Street in Mesa. We have a great time in the Lord. Mm-hmm. We really do. Also, we are online. We do a live service, church on Facebook and on Instagram. And I welcome everybody to the church. We have a 9 o'clock service. I was doing 2 services, a 9 and 11, until pandemic hit. And once pandemic hit, folks kind of shied away. I can go back to 2 now because things have picked up a lot. And so that's where we are, everybody. You guys come on down, 4930 East Main Street, Worship Life Center Church, Mesa, Arizona, 85205. And I just hope to see you all there. Brittany, it's funny you said discipline. Well, it was, the way that actually went was that the only love that I could show was when I purchased. If I bought you something, that was the love. And other than that, then all you get is the discipline. We didn't know how to talk through and know how to listen. Yes. That's huge.
So important.
It is so huge. And I had to find that out, that I needed to listen to my kids. I needed to listen to what my wife had to say, and it made a world of difference.
Absolutely.
I'm so grateful and thank God you had me on here. I hope I shared something that will help somebody.
You absolutely did. Is there anything that you want to leave? Any last remarks you want to leave with the audience, or?
I do, and it's very important, and I want you guys to really hear me with this. If you are dealing with anything, depression or addiction, or just kind of lost your way, please reach out. Do not stay. The enemy wants to keep you by yourself and wants to keep you alone. And we don't do life alone. So reach out to somebody. In fact, you can always reach out to me. Always reach out to me. I'm Pastor Stan, Worship Life Center Church. Just give me a shout. I will meet you wherever you are, and we will try to meet the demand of whatever you're going through.
I love that. Well, audience, this is our time. I am your host, Miss Brittany Renee. This is the Signature Required podcast, and it is here to stay. You can grab your merch at signaturerequired.com. If you're looking for an accountability partner, some business consulting, please reach out at brittanyrenee.com, and we will see you soon.
Bye, everybody.